Here lies the graveyard of the heart, where silence grows like wild grass. The wind walks softly between memories, afraid to wake what sleeps below. Broken promises are buried side by side, their voices muted by the soil of time. Love letters rot into the earth, ink dissolving into forgotten rain. The moon visits every night, counting the graves I never named. Some belong to smiles I lost, some to tears I never cried aloud. I planted patience once, but it bloomed into waiting. I planted trust and harvested scars. This heart learned early that even flowers need graves. Hope came like spring and left like winter without saying goodbye. I walk here barefoot, feeling the cold of my own past. Every step echoes a memory that refused to die peacefully. There is a grave for laughter, killed by the weight of reality. A grave for innocence murdered by knowing too much. Some nights, the dead feelings whisper. They ask why I left them, why I survived when they didn't. I have no answers, only a pulse that feels like guilt. Living feels like trespassing on what I once was. The sky above this place is heavy, as if it mourns with me. Stars look like distant candles, lit for losses no one remembers. I tried to resurrect love, but my hands shook. You cannot raise the dead when you were the funeral. Every heartbreak dug its own hole, every goodbye through the dirt. I stood there pretending to be strong, while parts of me were lowered down. This graveyard has no gate, no closing hours. I carry it everywhere, inside my ribs, behind my eyes. Sometimes I sit beside the deepest grave and talk to what I lost. I tell it I'm tired, that breathing feels like work. The past does not answer, but it listens. And somehow, that hurts more. I remain standing among the headstones, where my shadow looks older than me. Time does not heal here, it only teaches the pain new names. Every grave has a story, every story a wound. Some bleed openly, some ache quietly, pretending to be fine. I remember when this heart was alive, when it trusted the light. Now even daylight feels borrowed. Like joy, I must return before nightfall. The soil is heavy with unsaid words. Apologies I never spoke press against my feet. Forgiveness waits underground, still unopened. There is a grave for every almost, every maybe someday. Love that stood at the door but never knocked hard enough. Rain falls here differently, each drop feels like memory. The earth drinks my sorrow greedily, as if it recognizes its own. I once tried to leave this place to forget the map of pain, but the heart remembers it's dead even when the mind runs away. Ghosts of old feelings walk beside me, not to haunt, but to remind. They wear familiar faces and speak in familiar tones. One whispers, "You were enough." Another sighs, "But you believed you weren't." I kneel beside a small grave, the child I used to be, still believing, still hopeful, still unbroken. I tell him I'm sorry for what the world did to us. The wind answers for him, cold and unforgiving. Some graves are shallow, fresh with recent pain. Others are ancient, covered in moss and habit. Pain ages differently than people. It doesn't wrinkle, it deepens. I light a candle with my breath, though it burns weak. Even fragile light defies the dark by existing. This place taught me how to survive without living, how to smile with ruins inside, how to carry death and still walk. The graveyard of the heart is not the end. It is proof that something once lived, that something mattered enough to hurt. And maybe one day between these graves something new will grow. Not innocence, not blind love, but a quiet strength that knows pain and chooses to live anyway. I walk deeper now, where even memories hesitate to follow. This is the oldest part of the graveyard, where losses no longer have faces, only feelings. The air is thick with what-ifs. They hang like fog between the stones. I breathe them in unwillingly, and they settle in my lungs like regret. Some graves are unmarked because I never understood what I was losing at the time. Happiness often dies quietly, without a funeral. I touch a cracked headstone and feel a pulse beneath it. Pain never truly rests, it only pretends to sleep. There was a time I begged this heart to stop feeling. But numbness is just another grave, and I was buried alive inside it. I learned that strength is not the absence of breaking, but learning how to gather the pieces without cutting your hands too deeply. The night grows longer here. Stars flicker like tired eyes, watching me mourn myself. I hear laughter in the distance. Not real, just echoes from a life that feels like someone else's. This heart once dreamed loudly. Now it whispers, afraid the past might hear and demand more sacrifices. I sit beside the grave of love, not blaming it anymore. Love did not fail me, people did, and I let them. The soil remembers every tear. It knows my weight, the shape of my sorrow. I have knelt here so often the ground has learned my name. There is a strange peace in knowing where pain lives. At least here it doesn't surprise me. I have stopped asking when it will end. Some questions only deepen the wound. Instead, I ask how to carry this gently, how to breathe without reopening graves, how to live without forgetting. The graveyard of the heart is not cursed. It is sacred. It holds the proof that I loved deeply, that I risked everything. And though I walk among ruins, my feet still move forward. Even here, life refuses to completely surrender. Dawn tries to enter this place, but it comes softly, as if afraid to disturb the dead. Light does not erase the graves, it only shows them more clearly. I notice how some headstones lean, tired of standing tall. Even grief grows weary of holding itself upright. There is a grave shaped like waiting, long and narrow. I spent years beside it, thinking patience would be rewarded. Time passed. Nothing rose. Another grave smells like promises. Sweet at first, then suffocating. I believed words more than actions, and paid for it quietly. This heart learned to apologize for needing love, to whisper its needs as if they were crimes. I dig sometimes, not to reopen wounds, but to understand them. Pain wants to be witnessed, not fixed. The wind carries names I no longer say aloud. Some names still hurt. Others feel like lessons etched into bone. I built walls from caution, thinking they would protect me. But walls also block warmth, and I grew cold inside my own safety. There is a grave for trust, not destroyed, just misplaced. Handed to the wrong hands at the wrong time. I forgive myself here, slowly. Forgiveness takes practice when you were your own executioner. The graveyard listens without judgment. It never tells me to move on. It understands that moving on doesn't mean leaving, it means carrying differently. I rest beneath a broken tree, its roots tangled with bones of the past. Even decay feeds new growth. Even endings have purpose. This heart still beats, not loudly, but honestly. Each beat says, I'm still here. I no longer fear this place. It shaped me, taught me depth, empathy, silence. One day, flowers will grow between these graves. Not because pain vanished, but because it was honored. And when someone asks why my eyes look tired yet kind, I will not explain. Some truths are earned only by surviving them. The graveyard of the heart will always exist, but it will no longer own me. I walk through it now with steadier steps, carrying both loss and the quiet courage to keep living. I pass beyond the familiar rows, into a place rarely visited, where even memory feels thin. This is where forgotten grief sleeps, not loud enough to cry, not quiet enough to rest. Here lie moments that never became stories. Glances held too long, words swallowed before birth. Love paused at the edge of fear. The ground is softer here, as if sorrow has learned to lie down gently. Pain changes shape when you stop fighting it. I find a grave with no name, only a date that repeats itself. The day I realized not everyone stays. I used to curse that truth. Now I bow to it. Impermanence is cruel, but honesty often is. This heart once mistook endurance for love, silence for peace, loneliness for strength. Wisdom arrived late, but it arrived. I sit among the stones and feel something unfamiliar. Not happiness, but relief. The relief of no longer pretending. Even grief grows lighter when it is allowed to breathe. The night wraps this place again, but it is not as heavy as before. Darkness loses power when you stop running from it. I listen to my own heartbeat, steady, imperfect. It does not apologize anymore. It does not beg to be chosen. There is a new space here now, not a grave, but a clearing. A pause. A beginning that does not rush itself. I plant nothing yet. Healing cannot be forced. It arrives like trust, slow, cautious, real. If someone enters this heart someday, they will walk past these graves. They must. Love without awareness destroys blindly. I will not hide my ruins again. Anyone who stays must respect the dead and the survivor alike. The graveyard of the heart is quieter now. Not empty, just understood. And in that understanding, I finally rest without disappearing. Morning returns with a pale sky, the kind that doesn't promise joy, only continuation. And sometimes, continuation is mercy. I trace the paths I once avoided, the ones paved with hardest truths. They no longer cut my feet, they have become familiar ground. There is a bench carved from patience. I sit there often now. Waiting has changed meaning. It no longer asks for rescue, only for honesty. I notice how silence here has many tones. Some are heavy with mourning, others are gentle, almost kind. This heart stopped asking why pain chose me. Pain never chooses, it arrives where doors are open. I once confused intensity with depth, chaos with passion. Now I value calm the way survivors value water. The graves no longer multiply. That is how I know I am healing. I speak to the past without anger. I thank it for the lessons it delivered harshly. I forgive those who could not love me properly, not for them but to free space inside my chest. There is a quiet strength in not needing closure. Some endings are answers themselves. I walk through the center of this place, and for the first time, I am not looking for anything. The heart learns balance, how to hold grief in one hand and hope in the other without dropping either. I leave small offerings now. Acceptance, boundaries, self-respect. They do not wither. The graveyard of the heart has become a garden of truths. Not beautiful, but honest. And honesty, I've learned, is where peace begins. I step toward the edge of this land, not escaping, just expanding. Life waits beyond pain, not untouched by it, but informed by it. When I return here, it will not be to mourn, but to remember how far I have come. I cross a narrow path now, one that once felt forbidden. It leads toward forgiveness, not the kind that forgets, but the kind that loosens the grip of old wounds. The air feels different here, lighter, as if sorrow has finally exhaled. Even the stones seem less cold, their edges softened by time. I realize I no longer count the graves. I no longer measure my worth by how much I have lost. This heart once lived in survival mode, beating only to endure. Now it beats with intention, slowly learning joy without fear of punishment. I remember how I used to flinch at kindness, how peace felt unfamiliar, almost suspicious. Pain had trained me well, but healing is a quiet teacher. It does not shout, it simply stays. I watch the sky change colors above this place. Grief has its sunsets too. Some endings are gentle if you let them be. I whisper goodbye to versions of myself that kept me alive when I didn't know how. They can rest now. There is no rush anymore. No need to prove survival. Living is enough. The graveyard of the heart stands behind me, not erased, but integrated. A chapter, not the whole story. I step forward carrying wisdom, not weight. Scars, not chains. And though pain once ruled this land, it no longer owns my future. I walk on, still tender, still human, still here. I move farther now, where the earth begins to feel warm again. Not healed, just alive. There is a difference, and I respect it. The echoes behind me grow softer. They no longer chase. They follow at a distance, like reminders that know their place. I notice how my breath has changed. It is no longer shallow with fear. It fills my chest as if it belongs there. Once, I thought pain was the deepest thing I could feel. I was wrong. Understanding goes deeper. There are still moments when an old name tightens my throat. But it passes. Everything passes, even what felt eternal. I sit beneath an open sky, no stones around me now. Just space. Just possibility that doesn't demand certainty. This heart has learned that love is not supposed to hurt endlessly. That staying silent is not the same as being strong. I promise myself something here, quietly, without witnesses. I will not abandon me again. The past can visit, but it will not move back in. I feel gratitude not for the pain, but for the survival. For the way I kept going even when I didn't know why. The graveyard of the heart is finally behind me. Not forgotten, not denied, but honored. Ahead, the road is uncertain, and that no longer scares me. Uncertainty means nothing is buried there yet. I walk forward with a heart that knows loss and still chooses openness. That, I have learned, is courage. That I pause at the edge of what once frightened me, and notice my hands are steady. Fear has not vanished. It has simply learned that it no longer commands me. The world ahead hums quietly, not loud with promises, but honest in its uncertainty. I welcome that honesty like a long-missed friend. This heart carries its history without dragging it. Each memory rests where it belongs, no longer clawing at the present. I think of all the nights I begged for an ending, not knowing I was being shaped for a beginning that needed patience. The ache still visits sometimes, knocking softly. I answer without panic, without opening old graves. I have learned the language of myself, when to rest, when to speak, when to walk away without guilt. There is strength now in choosing peace over familiarity. Pain was familiar. Peace had to be learned. I look back one last time, not with sorrow, but with respect. That place kept what I could not carry forever. The graveyard of the heart did not destroy me. Taught me depth, taught me how fragile things matter, taught me how to love without disappearing. I step fully into what comes next, not armored, not naive, but awake. And if I ever return there again, it will not be to bury myself, but to remember how even the heaviest grief could not stop this heart from choosing life.